Hey, brother, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for making time. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no question at all. Sorry, I'm not visible, but I'm on the go. So
I I totally
is that
understand.
all right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Wanted to ask you because obviously I want to share this with the doctoral program in urban education. I wanted to know if I can have permission to record this just to share with them and the professor.
Yeah, for sure, no
Okay.
question.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So, um, first question is well, just want to first tell you I really appreciate your work. I'm the youngest of seven. I'm not from Oakland, but from very similar environments, and I'm the youngest of seven. So your story and your work really resonates with me. Um, and so I'm in the doctoral program, and we have a class called Foundations in Urban Education taught by Dr. Brianna Hinga. And we really kind of sat down on your work as far as like really got into it. And so just so you know, at USC, your work is really being lauded and praised.
Oh, that's dope. I'm glad. I'm
Yes,
glad it's
sir.
useful.
Yes, sir. So first question is um, when did you decide to write Growing Roses in Concrete, and how long did the process take to come about?
When did I decide to write it?
Yeah, like I
Is
mean,
that what you said?
obviously, but like, was it a certain moment? I don't know if you can remember, but where you decide, hey, I'm getting ready to put this on paper and write this, and how long did it take?
Um, I don't know. I kind of feel like I've been writing that piece my whole life.
Mm,
Um, and different iterations of it, and I think that I was. It really sort of materialized for me that particular piece when I first encountered the film series Unnatural Causes, and that put so much um, of the language of science to what I had been experiencing as as a young person, and then what I was experiencing uh, through my students as a teacher, um, what I was experiencing as a community member, and so I think I suddenly had this new language. I felt so trapped in education and educational research, and it has felt so flat and stagnant for me, frankly, since I started grad school. And um, and when I got on to Unnatural Causes and I started reading in public health and social epidemiology and neuroscience um, and the medical field and psychology, I just, like, my brain just started exploding because I suddenly had a language to describe um, what I had experienced and what I was wrestling with, and that one of the truest spaces where I had always felt like these things were being talked about was in hip hop. And so it was kind of a merging of, like, almost like this trifecta, like acknowledging, like giving the acknowledgement to the griots like Pac, who have been saying this stuff, and um, and using art to narrate it. Chuck D called hip hop's um, CNN for Black and Brown people,
right.
right? And so there was like that like bringing that piece in, and then bringing in this new language that I was like, why aren't these folks talking to educators?
Right.
You know, like why aren't trauma specialists and neuroscientists talking to educators? And so I wanted to bring like that voice into the educational discourse, and then I wanted to bring the voice of my community, young people, teachers, you know, and my own voice. And so it was, that's when the piece really sort of all took shape, because I had all three pieces that had been, I think, sitting really independently of each other, and it was really unnatural causes that gave me the third leg that built the stool.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. I've always wondered, why don't they talk to teachers more, particularly those who work with students who are going through something. So I love how you definitely connected that. Can you describe what critical hope is in your words?
So I chose to modify the concept of hope, and you know, I have to say that like my close homie, who's a faculty member, he was super influential in how that article took shape, and he really helped me think through the need to modify hope, because I think, you know, this was, mind you, this is like, you know, early on with Obama, right? And so he ran, and it was, and so the issue that the Harvard Ed Review issue that published that article was a theme issue, and the theme was a sort of a question about what's going to be the impact of the first black president on education, right? And so that article is a response to that prompt.
Wow.
And that's why I centered it around hope, because Obama had basically built a presidential campaign on the concept of hope.
Right.
Right. And but there was a lot of elements to the hope dealing that Obama was doing, yes, that were fake.
Right.
Right. Not meaning that like he wasn't sincere in what he was saying, but it was false hope.
Right.
Right. None of that shit was going to happen.
Right.
But he was a hope dealer. He was peddling hope to people at a time when the nation was really feeling hopeless.
Right.
And so I wanted to say that like that you can't. I wanted to modify the concept of hope to say that hope is it's a verb. You know, like it's active. Like you have to hope, and that means you got to do something.
Yes.
It's not just right. It's not just shit you talk about. Like that doesn't make people hopeful.
Right.
And so I wanted to help teachers understand that like you can't just stand up there and tell kids everything's gonna be all right if you just, you know, study and pay attention and show up to class and do your homework. And it's like, no, it's actually not.
Right.
You know, like not where we come from. Like it's not. And so like be honest about that, which means you have to be critical. Right? You can't be Pollyannish about hope. Not with our babies.
Right.
That your hope has to be situated in a critical sensibility about white supremacy and about colonialism and about male supremacy and about hetero supremacy and about class supremacy. And like you have to be conscious and critical. Otherwise you're peddling false hope. Right. And that's at least as, if not more, tragic and toxic than no hope at all. It's fool's gold.
Right. So like saying you're on an island and you look in the distance and you see somebody that you think is help. You know, you sent the SOS and you realize it's not that. That's worse. You're right. It's more devastating. You know what I mean? Because you think help is coming and it's really not.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it delays you really confronting your situation. It's what, Paulo Freire called false generosity.
Mm. Wow. Well,
And critical hope is true generosity.
True generosity. I like that.
And true generosity is consciousness. Right? True generosity seeks liberation and freedom. False generosity seeks dependence. Like, you need my generosity.
Wow. That's giving me the goosebumps. Right now, I just began a work. We're in Southern California, where USC is, and so many aspects to attack education in. But I'm creating a work called Courting Kings, and so I want to start having a series of conversation dialogues, and also have a written piece that discusses how our young men who are Black and brown are actually kings, and we need to learn how to court them and understand them. Court them meaning, understand them, and so a lot of it is at least a portion of it is based on the understanding of what they call families and court systems call gangs. I wanted to ask you, as I prepare this, in your opinion, why is there such a high number of African American students and that are suspended? That's a huge issue in California and our nation. It's kind of embarrassing how the disproportion is, and it's still, for Black and brown males, it even trickles down to our correctional system. But do you have a theory as to why we have African American students suspended from school such a high rate?
Before I jump into that, I want to first of all acknowledge your work and and how you're conceptualizing it. I think that the concept of the young people being kings is getting a lot of traction. There's a kind of popular cultural element to it that I think is attractive to young people. I'd encourage you to check out the work. Are you familiar with Kingmakers of Oakland?
No.
So I'd encourage you to check them out. Kingmakers of Oakland. It's a spin-off of the African American Male Achievement project that Chris Chapman and a host of other really good brothers launched inside of OUSD, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. Their work would be well worth your time to study. And then you could also check out the work of Kariga Bailey, who's kind of back and forth between Sacramento and Oakland. He worked at Roses and Concrete from the beginning, and he's a musician, he's an artist, educator, and he developed something. He has a line that's attached to his music called Peace King and Peace Queen.
Okay.
So you can check out Kariga Bailey, Karega is his first name, and then Bailey, Bailey. And you can see some of his music, and he's phenomenal. Anyway, then the last thing that I would add about that is just to be not to be hypercritical, but I think to come back to the idea of being critical and being aware, and just make sure you work through the young people, or you work through the ideas with the young people, and you get them to be critical of the concept of king, right? And that you have them really study the etymology, right? And king as it relates to kingdom, which then relates to can relate to servitude, and can relate to unhealthy hierarchy and unearned privilege and unearned suffering, right? And so really have them wrestling with the idea of what it means to be a king and what it's meant historically and what you guys really mean when you say that.
Love it.
Because naming, right? Naming is so important.
Naming is very important. Naming is very
so
important.
Anyway, so but to your question, I mean, in a word or in two words, you know, the answer to your question is white supremacy. That's why, you know, this nation is built on a white supremacist framework that came in the form of colonialism. And so, and because there's been no naming of that intentionally by our schools and by, you know, folks in power, then it shouldn't surprise anybody that that those elements of white supremacy, right, and ergo black delegitimacy or black illegitimacy are embedded in every single system in this nation. And so you see that in every piece of data that you can possibly collect on well-being in any system, not just in schools, but in healthcare, in the legal system, in the economic system, in the political system. It doesn't matter, because all of those systems were birthed out of a deliberate, intentional, and highly resourced and funded commitment to white supremacy. And, you know, like, people can feel whatever they want about that. Like, I really don't care about your feelings about that, because it's a fact. Like, it's not debatable. If you read the historical documents, not the interpretation of the history, but if you actually read the original historical documents, you know, as Malcolm said, the truth is lying there.
Right.
You know, the founding documents, 3/5. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was a commitment to delegitimizing black life at the essence of the nation. And changing that, like saying, oh yeah, that is fucked up, we shouldn't do that, that doesn't undo it. It doesn't undo all of the social norming and hegemonic norms that have already dried into the concrete. You got to go in with a jackhammer and rip that shit out to really have a chance to disrupt it. You can't. It's foundational, and we haven't done the work of resetting our foundation, and so we're building on top of a rotten foundation. And the metaphor that I often use with teachers is, you know, I ask them, I'll say, you know, how many of you own a home? And, you know, depending on which part of the country I'm in, the number of hands can vary widely.
Right.
Right? In California, it might be 2 people that raise a hand, but in Minnesota, it's everybody. And I said, when you bought your house, what was the first thing you had inspected?
Foundation.
And they always say the foundation, right? And I say, why? Why didn't you inspect the HVAC system? Why didn't you inspect the hard floors? Why the foundation? And of course the answer is because if the foundation's rotten, then all of that other great stuff is a wasted investment because it's all going to fall in on itself. And I said, exactly. The foundation of this nation, the foundation of public schools is rotten. And so before you start putting in new programming and, new whiteboards and new computers and new teachers and new curriculum and new assessments, drill down into the foundation and root out the rotten parts so that whatever investments you make last. And to do that literally means to go back to a foundational conversation about public education for what? Why do we take children from their families at age 5 by law? Why do we make parents bring their children to this institution for 13 years, for 8 hours a day? And if the purpose of education, the purpose of that requirement in this nation is not wellness, the wellness of the child, that is the purpose of public education, that every child should leave our institutions more well than when they came.
Right.
And I mean well in all ways, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, well. And because we do not say that that is the purpose of public schools, and it's not the purpose of public schools, and because it's not, then you're forced to ask, or not forced, but you're asking this question. And the answer to the question is not structural, it's foundational.
Yeah.
You can move all the structures around you want. It's just lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. You got to change the foundation.
Wow. Well, Dr. Andrade, first of all, again, I want to say thank you. I just have one last question for my classmates and everyone that USC is going to listen to this. Do you have any upcoming projects that you can kind of give us a little information about, maybe a sneak peek, and also, or will you be speaking at any conferences soon? Will you be coming to Southern California or USC anytime soon?
Thank you for that question. So perfect timing too, because we just launched, I'm one of the founders of an organization called Community Responsive Education, or CRE. It's myself and then two of my most respected and close friends in the work, Allison Titinyango-Kubales, who is also faculty with me at San Francisco State and does is one of the most significant voices in the work, the debate and the discussion and the implementation of ethnic studies around the state and around the nation. So folks should get familiar with her work for sure. And then the other person is Glenda Makatanay, who is the founder of an organization called Upper Cloud Media, and is just like brilliant, a brilliant clinician and art therapist and community organizer. And so I really encourage folks to check out both of their work and the work of CRE. What we just launched in CRE is a 3-year project that is building the first of its kind youth wellness index to actually measure the degree to which schools build wellness in our young people.
That's awesome.
And, sorry?
I said, that's awesome.
Oh yeah. So, so we just launched it 3 months ago. And so if you stay tuned on the CRE website, we'll have a couple things that folks can get involved with. One is We're having we have a conference every year to bring together community educators, researchers from all over the country and internationally to one, give folks an update on how we're progressing with this with this project, and then also to engage in these really meaningful foundational conversations about how are we going to disrupt this system. And so our first conference is scheduled for September or October. We haven't locked in the date yet, but if you keep up with us on CRE, community responsive .org, communityresponsiveeducation.org, you can be up to date on when it is, and we would love to have folks come. It'll be in Oakland, and then the other pieces of it are that we're launching a podcast with some of the nation's best thinkers about youth wellness and youth trauma. People like Maestro Jerry Dale, who's the founder of the National Compadres Network. He's down there near you guys. You should definitely check out his work. Christine Sleater, to name, the list is long. And so we're doing these podcasts where we've got these folks that are, quote unquote experts in the research field around youth wellness, talking with young people from our communities about wellness, and then talking with me and Allison and Glenda. So, again, you can get access to some of that podcast on CRE when it drops. And then the third piece that folks can get access to is, as part of this 3-year project, we're going to create a feature-length documentary on the practices of some masterclass teachers that have made youth wellness in all the ways that I described the core of their practice. And so we're going to be spending a year studying their classrooms and with a film crew. And then in year 3, we're going to do a national tour. I think we plan to do 3 to 5 cities, and LA is one of them that we're thinking about, where we will do a screening of the film and then have a half-day conference wrapped around it for educators and researchers. So that's what I'm doing on my free time.
Man, that's liberation time right there, because that's amazing, and I can only imagine it. So we'll definitely be following you on CRE website and social media as well, and just many blessings to you and your family for taking time out to give us a message today, and just continue to blessings on all your work. You've helped so many, and you've inspired so many, including myself. So thank you so much, and I will make sure that we spread this to our USC doctoral program.
Right on, brother. I appreciate all the kind words, and would say back to you, igualmente, that I give you those same blessings right back at you. And I just want to end by acknowledging how beautiful it was to hear the little one's voice. I don't know if that's actually your child.
Yeah, that's my daughter. I'm sorry, I was trying to rock her.
Nah, man, like there's a I think it's a Lakota saying that says, take your children with you everywhere and be unashamed.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And it was beautiful just to hear that. Is it you have a son or daughter?
2-month-old daughter. Her name is Glory.
Okay. Wow. Well, Glory gave me some glory, and so thank you for sharing her voice with me. It gave me some good spirit uplift. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. All right. Well, I will make sure I give you a copy, and I'm sure Dr. Hinga will be just reaching out to you because she's a huge proponent of what you're doing, and she just shares it all across the campus of USC.
Okay, that's what's up. And hey, anytime I can be supportive, I come when called. So just let me know.
We're gonna try to get you out here. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, brother. Take care.
Take care.